Hello, one and all. Welcome to another episode of MMA Visionalysis. This one, I'm here to talk about the heavyweight bout that took place UFC 305, Perth, Australia, between Tai Tuivasa and Jairzinho Rozenstruik. This fight was interesting because of the judging, particularly. And it was just an interesting fight, the fact that it lasted 3 rounds. But before I get started, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification to get all of this that is new from this channel. Your channel, the one and only MMA Visionalysis. The UFC is always filled with excitement, whether it be inside of the octagon when the fights are actually taking place. And that's the most obvious thing, leading up to the fight with the storylines and the individual characters that have us all captivated. It depends on what character we're talking about here. We are talking about a character from most certainly Tai Tuivasa. Also, just the anticipation for said event collectively adds to the excitement and the thrill that the UFC gives us. I believe that the UFC in the future is going to be one of the biggest entities on the planet, regardless of what space we're talking about. And they're going to venture out and become even bigger than the world of sports itself, just because the entertainment factor is so heavily present when we're talking about UFC events. And I want to go out and say that UFC events at this point, aside from like Guns N' Roses concert or something, is perhaps the most entertaining thing that a person can tune into. With all respect to all other sports, I do understand excitement, but not as exciting as combat sports, specifically the UFC. This fight here was interesting to begin with, the fact that it lasted 3 rounds, but it was even more interesting the fact that one of the judges gave all 3 rounds to Tai Tuivasa. Personally, I love Tai Tuivasa, but he did not have any edge over Jairzinho Rozenstruik all throughout the entirety of the 15 minutes. As long as that fight lasted, Jairzinho dictated the pace. Jairzinho was first to the punch. This is not to say that Tai Tuivasa did not land some big punches of his own. He did. They were far and few spread out, and also they were ineffective ultimately. How did the judge see that Tai Tuivasa won 3 rounds? It was very, very shocking, not only to me, but obviously to the people watching and the UFC. Matter of fact, that particular judge was removed, which is so UFC. In all honesty, only in the UFC do you get to see such thing happen. Absolutely fascinating. It's fantastic that this move had to happen, obviously. Even though this happened, we still had some questionable judging, even in the later fights. I believe the Gamrot Dan Hooker fight was a great example of that. You look on paper, Gamrot was ahead on everything, specifically takedowns. 15 attempted, 5 landed. I do understand wasn't able to keep Dan Hooker on the ground, but nonetheless, he was able to take Dan Hooker down 5 times, 15 shots attempted. He was even ahead on significant strikes landed. I do understand flashier punches were coming from Dan Hooker's side, though the fight was scored for Dan Hooker. A bit of a shocker, in all honesty. That being said, the judging was very questionable in some fights, specifically this fight here, the Jairzinho Rozenstruik Tai Tuivasa fight. We saw a thing that could only happen in the UFC, where one of the judges was kicked off the panel and replaced by a different one. Also, this fight was actually a pretty good fight. I did not expect this fight. I don't think many expected this fight to last the full duration. It actually lasted 15 minutes. And these guys, for being heavyweights, looked very athletic. I mean, in all honesty, the fact that they went 15 minutes, good technique, did not look sloppy. Jairzinho Rozenstruik did dictate the pace, and he was quicker to the punch. That has to be said. He controlled the angles, and he had the frame in the fight. He controlled the center of the octagon, which ultimately earned them the decision win over Tai Tuivasa. With one judge giving the fight to Tai Tuivasa, imagine if there were two judges viewing the fight the same way. That could have been probably one of the biggest robberies of the year so far. I do understand that things like this happen sometimes, but there's got to be a better way of judging fights. Maybe an AI judging system, because human mistakes keep happening over and over again in the sport, and I don't think it's fair to guys. This tarnishes careers, and this breaks strides. There were certain technologies that were added to other sports, and I do digress a bit. Like in the world of soccer, there is something called the VAR, the Virtual Assistant System, and it's a system that helps with things that, a human referee cannot see. Things that go unseen, and this system is so precise. It's literally down to centimeters precise, and it has changed the world and the face of soccer as of now, thanks to this technology that's held by human beings. Ultimately, it's ran by human beings. We still have a referee in soccer, but with the VAR, the decisions are much, much more accurate. And I believe in MMA, the addition of some kind of AI judging system would not be such a bad idea, in all honesty. Just because these fights, the way they're judged is just questionable, to say the least. How the judge that got kicked off the panel ultimately saw all three fights for Tai Tuivasa, that baffles me. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. Not the only questionable decision of the night. I believe this kind of made the night a bit interesting, in all honesty. The fact that the judge was replaced, and the fact that he saw the fight that, Tai Tuivasa winning entirety of the fight is just very questionable. It's just us as average fans seeing it can discern more who's winning, who's losing, than the judges that are supposedly experts at what they do. So I think that aspect of the game needs a lot of work. Time and time again, judges disappoint, whether they mean to, whether it's deliberate or not. I'm not going to go into that, but the point I'm trying to make here is that I think in that aspect of the game we can see improvements. I believe that an AI judging system is something that perhaps should be considered, with attaching perhaps chips to the gloves, seeing the impact of shots, total shots, shots landed. I'm pretty sure we can build ways slash AI systems specifically to judge fights, take the human element out of the fight. And even if you were to have human supervision, the human supervision only aids in the ultimate decision of the fight. I believe this aspect of the game has to be fixed, because it quite frankly, us as fans, we don't lose much when a fighter loses via judges' error. But fighters, there's a lot at stake. I believe we can see improvements in this field, and I believe heading into the future, I think AI will get into the judging of MMA fights. Am I the first to say that? I don't know. I never heard it before, and I don't think I'm opposed to such idea, attaching chips to the gloves. I'm sure the guys that are in this kind of field can figure out ways to create this kind of system and perfect it. If you made it this far, I appreciate you for sticking around. Please let me know what you think in the comments and like, subscribe for more.